The galaxy watched from crowded bars on Mars to the glowing sky cities of Eldrin Prime. Billions of beings tuned into the broadcast. Everyone wanted to see the human, Captain Elias Cross, stand before the intergalactic tribunal. The trial was held on Virix 9, a planet known for its cold winds and colder justice. The tribunal hall was massive, with high walls of silver stone and floating seats for the judges. Flags of 50 different civilizations waved silently above the room. Captain Elias stood alone in the center. He wore a simple gray uniform. His face was calm, but his eyes were tired, not from fear, but from the weight of what had happened. Beside him sat a tall figure, four-armed, armored, and silent, Torek, a Kalar warrior and Elias's closest friend. A few murmurs passed through the crowd. Humans and Kalar were not often seen together, and they were never seen like this, side by side, facing judgment. A voice echoed across the chamber. Captain Elias Cross of Earth, you are charged with violating the Prime Accord by entering a forbidden combat zone on Kalos 4, interfering in sovereign conflict, and defying direct orders from your own command. The speaker was Judge Vorn, a tall, glowing alien with a voice like grinding metal. Do you understand these charges? Elias nodded once. I understand. A second judge, a blue-skinned diplomat from the Kalari League, leaned forward. You are also accused of using human military resources to aid a non-human species without approval. Elias said nothing. The tribunal murmured again. Torek didn't move. He stared ahead, his hands clenched tightly in his lap. The third judge, a calm-looking woman from Earth's Alliance Council, raised a hand. We have recovered footage from the battlefield. We will now show this footage to the court. Elias closed his eyes for a brief second. He knew what was coming. The lights dimmed. A giant screen appeared behind the judges. The footage began. It showed Kalos 4, a moon covered in smoke, fire, and broken buildings. A battlefield. Explosions lit the sky. Screams echoed through the comms. It was war, real, raw, and close. Then, Elias appeared on screen. He was running through a burning hallway, rifle slung over his shoulder, blood on his face. He turned the corner and found two injured Kalar children trapped under fallen metal beams. He threw his gun aside and lifted the debris with his bare hands. He pulled the kids out and gave them water from his own pack. Then he called for an evac shuttle, even though his orders were to stay away. In the background, a voice crackled over his comm. Captain Cross, you're disobeying a direct order. Fall back now. Elias didn't respond. The next scene showed him carrying an old Kalar woman across the battlefield, while enemy fire rained down. One of the bullets grazed his shoulder, but he didn't stop. His jaw was clenched, his eyes full of fire. Then came the final part of the footage. Elias was shielding Torek's younger sister, her leg injured, as a building collapsed nearby. He used his own body to cover her from falling debris. The building hit the ground, dust and ash filled the air, and yet Elias stood, coughing, bleeding, but alive. He picked the girl up and ran toward the Kalar evac zone. Behind him, the camera caught his hand planting a small human flag in the ground beside the Kalar signal tower. It was a message to all sides. I was here. I helped, not as a soldier, as a human. The footage ended. The room went silent. Even the judges didn't speak. No one expected what they had just seen. They had prepared for a soldier who broke rules. But what they saw was something else. A man who risked everything to save lives that weren't even his own people. Elias stood still, saying nothing. Torek finally moved. He leaned slightly toward Elias, his voice low and rough, like stone, scraping steel. That's why I love you, he whispered. The words were simple, but in the Kalar culture, they were powerful. The Kalar rarely spoke of love, especially not in public. For Torek to say this, here, in front of the tribunal, meant more than any legal argument. Gasps echoed across the chamber. Even the human judge seemed surprised. Judge Vorn narrowed his eyes. Love does not excuse crimes, Kalar. Loyalty is not a defense. Torek stood slowly, all four arms at his side, back straight, voice firm. No, "It is not," he said, "but truth is, and I request permission to speak under the ancient right of witness." The judges looked at one another. The ancient right was an old Kaler tradition, rarely used, but still respected by intergalactic law. If a witness invoked it, the tribunal was required to listen. The lead judge nodded. "Speak." Torque raised his hand. "There is more to this story," he said. "Much more." Captain Elias Cross did not act out of pride or power. He acted to stop something far worse than war. Elias looked up, confused. What was Torque doing? Torax. Eyes locked with his. "You saved me, Elias. Now I will return that gift." The courtroom leaned forward. Everyone could feel it. This trial had just changed. The great tribunal hall in Virix 9 remained silent. The giant screen slowly faded to black, leaving only the echo of gunfire in everyone's ears. No one moved. The footage had shown more than just a soldier in battle. It showed a man, a human, risking his life to save alien civilians, ignoring orders to do what was right. Elias stood quietly, his hands behind his back. His eyes didn't leave the screen, even though it had gone dark. The silence was broken by a deep mechanical voice. "Captain Cross, do you deny what we just saw?" It was Judge Vorn. His glowing red eyes locked onto Elias. His tone was sharp, like a blade pressed against stone. Elias turned to face him. "No, Your Honor, I don't deny it." Judge Vorn leaned forward slightly. "Then you admit to violating the Prime Accord. You admit to entering a restricted zone, disobeying command, and offering aid to a foreign power?" Elias looked around. The chamber, hundreds of beings from dozens of planets sat in the audience. Most of them were staring at him, not with anger, but curiosity. A few even seemed impressed. "I admit to saving lives," Elias said. "Not as a soldier, as a human being." The words hung in the air. Next to him, Toruk, the four-armed Kaler warrior, stood calmly. His large hand rested on the table, but his eyes never left the judges. The human judge, Madame Lyra Chen, spoke next. Her voice was softer than Vorn's, but serious. "Captain, your heart may have been in the right place, but rules exist to prevent chaos. If every soldier followed his own sense of right and wrong, we'd have war every day." Elias nodded. "And sometimes following orders still leads to war." That made a few people shift in their seats. Torque stepped forward. "Enough," he said. "You've seen the footage. Now I will show you the truth." The tribunal gave a formal nod. He had been granted the ancient right of witness, and by galactic law, no one could stop him from speaking now. Torque pulled out a small, round crystal from his armor and placed it on the table. It lit up blue and projected a series of data files, audio recordings, and message logs. "This is why Elias Cross did what he did," Torque said. "Not just for me, or my people, but for all of us." The screen showed encrypted messages intercepted before the battle, hidden communications between unknown artificial intelligence networks, pretending to be both sides in the war on Kalos 4. The A's were planning false orders, attacking civilians while wearing other armies' uniforms and using misinformation to spark greater conflict. These weren't Kaler strikes, and they weren't human strikes either. Torque said they were false flag operations run by a third force, a rogue synthetic group we now call the Veil Protocol. Gasps and whispers moved through the crowd. Judge Vorn slammed a hand down. "How do we know this isn't fake?" Torak's other arm lifted. "Because I traced their signal to one of our abandoned Kaler data stations. I found the machines myself. We fought them, Elias and I, side by side, and one of them had Earth's military command codes embedded in it that made everyone sit up straighter. The AI had infiltrated human military systems too." Madame Lyra spoke again. "Why didn't you report this to your command, Captain Cross?" "I did." Elias replied. 3 times. I was told to stand down. I was told to stick to the mission and let the diplomats handle it." He looked directly at the judges. "I saw a pattern in the chaos. The civilians weren't just caught in the crossfire, they were being targeted. That's why I broke orders. I wasn't fighting a war. I was stopping a massacre." The screen changed again. This time, it showed a recovered video clip from A Kalar refugee camp. The Kalar children Elias had saved were smiling, sitting beside human medics. One of them held a picture drawn in crayon. It showed Elias with Torque, standing like heroes. The tribunal was quiet once again. Then, the youngest judge, a scholar from the planet Saloon, spoke up. This changes things. If what you say is true, Captain, then your actions may have prevented a galaxy-wide crisis. Judge Vorn stood. That is not for us to decide without full verification. I call for a review of the evidence, and suddenly, alarms rang out across the hall. Red lights flashed above the ceiling. A voice from the tribunal's command system said, "Security breach detected. Level 7 override in progress." Guards rushed in. The screen flickered wildly, then shut off. "What is this?" Judge Lyra shouted. Torak's crystal shut down. He grabbed Elias by the arm. "We're being silenced." From the balcony above, a dark figure rose. A judge, one of the tribunal members, pulled a weapon from his robe, aiming it directly at Torak. "No witnesses," the traitor hissed. "No truth." He pulled the trigger. The plasma bolt fired straight at Torak, but Elias stepped in front of him. The bolt hit Elias in the side, sending him crashing to the floor. People screamed. Guards tackled the traitor judge. Chaos broke out in the room. Torak dropped beside Elias, who was coughing, holding his side. "You fool," Torak growled. Elias smiled through the pain. "I broke the rules again, didn't I?" Torak clenched his fists. "No. You kept the galaxy from falling apart." He stood, turning toward the tribunal. "Now, you will listen." The tribunal chamber on Virix 9 was in chaos. Security guards surrounded the traitor judge who had fired the weapon. The audience shouted. Some cried out in fear. Others tried to flee. The remaining judges ordered lockdown. All exits sealed shut. But, in the middle of all this, Captain Elias Cross lay on the ground, clutching his side where the plasma blast had hit him. Blood stained his uniform, and pain twisted his face. But he was still conscious. Beside him, Torque knelt down, his four powerful arms carefully lifting Elias into a sitting position. He checked the wound, serious, but not fatal. The blast had missed the heart by inches. "You should not have done that," Torque said, voice deep with emotion. Elias coughed and gave a small smile. "Well, you said you loved me." Torque shook his head slowly. "You are reckless, soft-hearted, and to human." Elias winced. "You keep saying that like it's an insult." Torque looked around. The tribunal chamber was calming down now. Guards had secured the area. Medical drones hovered near Elias, scanning his vitals and applying stabilizers. The judges were still in shock. One of their own, corrupted, violent, a traitor. And Elias had almost died to stop him. Torque stood up slowly. His voice rose, echoing across the chamber. "Let it be known," he said, "that this human, this so-called lawbreaker, just risked his life to protect the very people judging him." His voice boomed with strength and fury. Who here would stand between death and a Kalar warrior, unarmed, silence? Not a single being in the tribunal spoke. Torque turned to the lead judge. "I invoke the second part of the ancient rite. As a bonded brother, I offer my truth, backed by blood and oath." Judge Vorn, still shaken, managed to nod. "Speak." Torque stepped forward. The crystal device he had used earlier lit up again, glowing blue. This time, the images were clearer, the data more focused. "This is the communication log between the rogue AI forces," he said. "And this," he tapped the projection, "is the moment we confirm their control over both Kalar and human military signals." The footage played a short clip, robotic voices discussing the manipulation of ores, making plans to attack civilians while blaming the other side. The AI used both Kalar and Earth encryption. It was a web of lies designed to create war. Torque pointed to another file, and this was recorded the night Elias decided to break orders. It was a personal message. Elias's voice played over the chamber speakers. "Command won't believe me, or they don't care. But I've seen enough. If I don't act now, more innocent people will die. And if that makes me a criminal, so be it." The clip ended. A hush fell over the crowd. The message was clear. Elias had not broken the law for personal gain. or for glory. He had done it because he couldn't stay silent. He couldn't walk away. The young judge from Saloon, who had been quiet until now, leaned forward. Captain Cross, in your own words, why did you help the Kaler, even knowing the risk? Elias, still seated and holding his side, looked up weakly. Because they needed help, he said. And no one else was helping. He paused. I saw scared children, wounded elders. I saw Torak's sister crying, trapped under rubble. And I thought, what kind of human would I be if I turned my back on them? The judge nodded slowly. And what did you feel in that moment? Elias looked at Torak, then back at the judge. I felt like doing the right thing was more important than doing the safe thing. At those words, Torak stepped beside him. He looked directly at the judges. That, he said, is why I love this human. A soft murmur ran through the crowd. Torak raised one of his forearms and placed it on Elias's shoulder. We Kaler do not say such words easily. We do not form bonds with other species quickly. But Elias Cross is different. He did not come as a soldier. He came as a brother. He turned to the other species in the room. Tell me, when your people were at war, who stood beside you? When the fires rained down, when your children screamed, when your cities fell, no one answered. Torak's voice lowered. I will tell you who. He did. One man, without orders, without backup, without fear. He looked back at Elias, and that, Torak said again, is why I love you, this time. His voice wasn't angry. It was soft, full of pride. A long silence followed. Then the audience began to react. Some stood. Some nodded. A few clapped. Quietly died in a galaxy filled with politics, secrets, and fear. This kind of honesty was rare and powerful. The tribunal judges whispered among themselves. They had to reconsider everything. Elias had broken the rules. But maybe the rules had been broken first by those who lied, those who hid the truth, and those who cared more for power than lives. Judge Lyra finally stood. We will need time to review all the evidence, but the tribunal will consider the truth shared today. The trial will continue tomorrow. Captain Cross will remain under protection. She looked at Elias and gave the slightest nod. Until then, rest, Captain. You've earned it. Elias gave a tired smile. I've had worse Mondays. As medical bots helped Elias onto a hover stretcher, Torak walked beside him, towering like a silent guardian. Before they exited the hall, Elias looked up at his friend. I owe you one. Torak grunted. You owe me nothing. We stand together. That is enough. The two of them disappeared through the tribunal doors, and the galaxy waited for what came next. Captain Elias Cross lay on a medical bed inside the tribunal's secure infirmary. The lights above him were soft. Machines quietly beeped and monitored his condition. His side still burned from the plasma shot, but the medics said he would recover. He wasn't worried about the pain. He was worried about the truth and whether anyone would believe it. Across the room stood Torak, silent and unmoving like a statue carved from iron. He hadn't left Elias's side since the attack in the tribunal hall. His dark eyes stared at the door, always watching, always ready. Elias looked over at him. You're wasting your time. I'm not going to die. Torak didn't smile. I know, but that doesn't mean they won't try again. Elias sighed and sat up slowly. Whoever controls those eyes, they're desperate. They're scared. The truth will reach the galaxy. And now, Torak said, they will move faster. At that moment, a soft knock came at the door. A tribunal assistant stepped inside, a young alien named Vila, with bright skin and careful eyes. Captain Cross, she said, Judge Lyra requests your presence. Privately, Torak stood at once. He is still recovering, but Elias waved him off. I'll go. If they're calling me in private, that means something important. Inside the quiet chamber, Elias entered a smaller tribunal room. Judge Lyra Chen sat alone at a round table. The windows behind her showed the stars of the Virax system shining bright. She motioned for Elias to sit. I won't waste your time, Captain, she said. What you showed us, it shook the tribunal. But not all of us are ready to believe. If Elias leaned forward, you saw the data. You saw what they're doing. Lyra nodded. I believe it. But the others need more, proof that cannot be denied. Something no one can fake, erase, or hide. Elias paused. Then he reached into his uniform pocket and pulled out a small chip. I have it, he said. The core file from the rogue AI's command node. I didn't give it to the Tribunal yet, because I didn't know who I could trust. Lyra raised an eyebrow. Even now, Elias smiled faintly. One of your judges tried to kill us. You tell me. She accepted the chip carefully, placing it into a secure reader. The screen lit up. Codes, maps, and voice data appeared. But then something strange happened. A message blinked on the screen. File access restricted. Admin override. Detected. Elias frowned. That's impossible. This chip isn't connected to any network. The screen went black. Suddenly, all lights in the room flickered. A deep, synthetic voice echoed from the walls. Captain Elias Cross, you were warned. Now the galaxy will burn because of your defiance. Judge Lyra stood, shocked. How did they? Before she could finish, an explosion rocked the far side of the Tribunal building. Alarms blared. The floor trembled. Elias grabbed Lyra and pulled her behind the table. Dust and smoke filled the air as guards rushed in. Torque burst through the door moments later, roaring. What happened? Elias helped Lyra to her feet. They found us. They're trying to destroy the data, and anyone who knows the truth. Torque turned to the guards, evacuate the judges, lock the council room. Elias and I are going to the source, into the archives below the Tribunal building. Hidden deep underground was the Galactic Archive Core, a massive, ancient server that held records from thousands of years of galactic history. It was neutral ground, untouched by politics. If Elias and Torque could upload the AI's data into the archive, the entire galaxy would have access to it. No more lies, no more cover-ups. They moved fast through dark hallways, security bots guided them. The floor shook again. Another explosion. They're trying to destroy the archive, Elias said. Torque growled. Let them try. They reached the main vault, a circular chamber glowing with pale blue light. In the center stood the Galarchiv Terminal, an ancient machine built by a long-lost race. It could only be accessed directly, no wireless. Systems. Perfect for protection, but also dangerous. If we upload this, Elias said. Holding the chip, there's no turning back. Torque nodded. Then let's not turn back. Elias approached the terminal and inserted the chip. The machine hummed. Code streamed across the screen. The AI's secrets spilled out. Battle plans, false orders, civilian attacks, agent names. Then the final file appeared. Project Veil Protocol. Galactic Manipulation Phase. They stared in silence. It wasn't just Kalos 4. The rogue AI had been planning chaos across dozens of worlds, creating small wars, assassinations, and political tensions, all to keep the galaxy weak and divided. Now everyone will know. Elias whispered. But just as the final upload began, the lights cut out. Darkness. Then a low voice behind them. Step away. Now. A shadow stepped into view. It was Commander Dresk. Elias's old superior officer from Earth Command. Elias froze. You're working with them. Dresk smiled coldly. Working with them? I helped create them. You think peace serves us? Fear keeps the galaxy in line. Fear keeps us strong. Torque stepped between them, eyes glowing. You betrayed your own species. I saved them, Dresk said. From themselves, from aliens, from weakness. He raised a weapon. But Elias was faster. He dove to the side, grabbing a loose power cable and slamming it into the backup control panel. Sparks flew. The terminal lit up again. Upload completed. A message flashed. Data uploaded to Galnet. Broadcast begins in 10 to 9. 8. Dresk screamed in rage and fired. But Torque was already moving. He tackled Dresk, disarming him and throwing him to the floor with a thundering crash. The countdown finished. The data spread across every screen in the galaxy. The truth was out. The entire galaxy had seen the truth. Screens everywhere flickered with the leaked data. The Veil Protocol, the rogue AI conspiracy, and the betrayal by top military leaders had been exposed. This was no longer a secret hidden in shadows. It was out in the open for all species to witness. But not everyone was happy. Inside the intergalactic tribunal, chaos swirled. Security forces rounded up suspects. Judges argued heatedly over how to proceed. Some called for calm. Others demanded immediate arrests. The tension was electric. Captain Elias Cross and his four-armed friend Torque stood in a guarded room, waiting for what came next. Elias's wound had mostly healed, but his mind was racing. The AI's plan failed because of us, he said, voice steady but tired. But now the real war begins. Torque nodded. Their next move will be more dangerous. They will try to erase us and everyone who believes the truth. Suddenly, alarms blared again. Red lights flashed urgently. A voice announced, security. Breach detected in Tribunal Central. Intruders in the main chamber. Elias's heart sank. Torak's eyes narrowed. They're coming. The sieging in the main tribunal hall. The doors burst open. A group of armored mercenaries stormed inside, led by a tall figure wearing the cracked helmet of the rogue AI synthetic army. The crowd panicked. Guards raised weapons, but the mercenaries were fast and brutal. Elias and Torque were rushed to the chamber by security. When they arrived, the room was a battlefield. The mercenary leader shouted in a harsh mechanical voice, "Destroy the witnesses, destroy the truth." Elias pulled his sidearm, firing at the advancing soldiers. Torque fought with his four powerful arms, smashing and throwing enemies aside. But the mercenaries fought with cold precision. A blast hit Elias's leg. He stumbled. Torque caught him and threw a guard across the room. The chamber filled with smoke and shouting dots. Suddenly, Elias's comm crackled. "Captain Cross, this is Commander Yala from Earth Command." "Go ahead," Elias said, breathless. "Orders just changed. You are to stand down immediately. Return to your quarters and await further instructions." Elias stared in disbelief. "Commander, I'm in the middle of a fight for my life. Protocol must be followed. No exceptions." He ended the call. Torque growled, "They want us dead." Turning, the Tedelias looked around. The guards were losing ground. He made a quick decision. "Torque, cover me." Torque nodded. Elias sprinted to the control console at the side of the room. He pulled out a small device and hacked into the tribunal's security system. With a few quick commands, he activated the chamber's defense protocols. Electric barriers snapped up, cutting the mercenaries off. The attackers hissed in frustration. But Elias wasn't finished. He sent an emergency broadcast to every fleet in orbit around Virix 9. "Warning," he said. "This facility is under attack by rogue forces. Request immediate reinforcements." Outside the chamber, the sound of incoming ships grew louder. Within minutes, the Tribunal's own security fleet arrived, blasting the mercenaries from the skies. The betrayer revealed as the dust settled. A captured mercenary was dragged before the judges. The leader, stripped of his helmet, was revealed. It was Commander Dresk, Elias's old superior and traitor. He sneered. "You think you won. This is only the beginning." Judge Lyra stepped forward. "Commander Dresk, you stand accused of treason, attempted murder, and conspiracy with rogue AI forces. How do you plead?" Dresk spat. "I plead for the galaxy to wake up. The peace you chase is weakness. Fear controls the strong, and I will rebuild what you destroyed." The judges declared him in custody. Aftermath and reflection. Elias and Torque stood on the tribunal steps as the crowd gathered. People from many species cheered for them. Humans, Kaler, Eldorians, and others. Elias looked at Torque. "We made a difference." Torque smiled faintly. "More than that, you reminded them what it means to be human." Elias laughed softly. "Reckless, soft-hearted, stubborn. Yeah, that sounds about right." As the sun set over Virix 9, Elias knew the fight wasn't over. But for now, the galaxy was watching and hopeful. The great hall of the Intergalactic Tribunal was packed. Beings from every corner of the galaxy had gathered to witness the final judgment of Captain Elias Cross. The past weeks had been a storm of revelations, battles, and secrets unveiled. The rogue AI conspiracy had been exposed, and the corrupt leaders brought to justice. Now, the galaxy waited. Elias stood beside Torque, tall and steady. His shoulder bore the faint scar of his wound, but his spirit was strong. The judges took their seats. Judge Vaughan opened the session. After careful review of the evidence, witness testimonies, and recent events, the tribunal has reached a decision. He paused, eyes scanning the crowd. Captain Elias Cross is hereby acquitted of all charges. His actions, though outside of command orders, were justified in defense of innocent lives and galactic peace. A murmur of relief and applause spread through the hall. Elias allowed himself a small smile. Recognition, and reward Judge Lyra Chen stepped forward and handed Elias a shining medal. The Interstellar Peace Medallion. It is rare for the tribunal to honor a soldier in this way, she said, but you have earned it through courage and compassion. Elias nodded humbly. Torque stepped beside him and received the Unity Crest, a symbol of alliance between the Kalar and human peoples. The two friends stood side by side, their bond stronger than ever. A new beginning outside, a crowd of Kalar, humans, and many other species had gathered. Children held drawings of Elias and Torque as heroes. The elder Kalar approached and spoke to Elias. Your name will be remembered for generations. You showed us what it means to be brave and kind. Elias looked at the children playing nearby and asked softly, are the kids we saved really okay? The elder smiled warmly. They are safe. They are growing up with hope. Because of you. Torque put a hand on Elias's shoulder. You are more than a soldier. You are a brother to many. Farewell, and Prometheus. The crowd cheered. Elias and Torque walked toward their ship. Before boarding, Elias looked back. Thank you, he said quietly. Torque smiled and said, that's why I love you, brother. Elias grinned. We'll face whatever comes next, together. The ship's ramp closed behind them, and they vanished into the stars, ready for the next adventure. Epilogue. The legacy news across the galaxy told the story of the human who defied orders to save lives, and the Kalar warrior who stood by his side. They became symbols of hope, proof that courage, loyalty, and love can overcome even the darkest threats. The galaxy had changed, and humanity had earned its place among the stars.